Mission Lane, we are a purpose-driven neo-banking platform, and we started with credit, and we strive to serve the half of America who are credit challenged, who have lower or no credit scores, and who are largely left behind or ignored by traditional financial institutions. And we serve about started a little less than 3 years ago, and we serve about 1.6 million right now, Zach.
Amazing.
And growing.
And I know you've seen this opportunity from a few different perspectives, but why do you think banks avoid this population, and what are some preconception or misconceptions we have about this population?
Yeah, it's a great question. First of all, we're talking half of the adults in America, 100+ million people. So the first thing to acknowledge is that that's not a homogeneous group. There's a lot of kind of diversity of backgrounds and experiences, credit score, income, history, and context, personal context. What is happening within their lives that might have led to or contributed to being in more of a credit challenge situation. So just acknowledge this is a very kind of wide swath of America and a very diverse population. But some of the, I think, misconceptions that I've seen over the years and what we're trying to solve at Mission Lane, one is that there's a bit of a perception stigma that I think we're all familiar with. Subprime is riskier, or there's financial institutions are worried about reputation concerns with serving these customers or whatever it may be. But there's more than just the perception and reputation. It's also operationally, for a lot of financial institutions, it's the technical lift of the risk management associated with serving these customers is hard. It is challenging, and for many, it's just not in their wheelhouse, and they choose not to invest in it. And then on top of that, depending on the nature of the financial institution, there's just economic disincentives. They have maybe brick and mortar branches to serve and other kind of legacy cost structures that make it harder to serve someone that might have kind of lower deposits per person than a more affluent customer. So there's a lot of reasons kind of within the structure of kind of the financial model. But on top of that, Zach, there's also our friends, our regulator friends, I think sometimes inadvertently make it harder for financial institutions to serve these customers. Many of the capital and liquidity requirements and operational risk requirements that banks have to manage disproportionately favor customers that are lower risk or more affluent. And so banks often feel a disincentive to invest in serving credit challenged consumers because it's just another kind of regulatory burden that they have to shoulder when they have plenty to deal with in their core businesses.
We've heard a few participants during these 3 days talk about the regulator's role in this, and there are quite a few actually who are in attendance. So I hope they're listening. You came from Barclays, if I remember correctly, right, to run Mission Lane, which obviously serves a very different audience. What was the opportunity you saw to make that leap?
Yeah, so I was running Barclays U.S. Consumer Bank before I got a call. I got a call kind of out of the blue from Nigel Morris, who started QED, a venture capital firm focused on fintech, and had been one of the co-founders of Capital One back in the day, and I'd spent a big chunk of my career at Capital One before Barclays. And Nigel called, and what he and I started talking about was this notion of there's a massive market of people, big group of people who are not well served by traditional financial companies, and we've heard a lot about that over the last 2.5 days. And it's really hard to do. It's difficult to serve them well. But we recognize that data and kind of modern approaches to data science are key to making a more inclusive financial sector for these customers. And if you can use that to create broader access to good financial products that are fair, that are transparent, that people understand, and then you layer on top of that the kind of the magic and the pixie dust of fintech around customer experience and making it feel engaging and modern and magical. If you can layer access and customer experience and then move at a much faster pace than we could in larger financial institutions that are burdened with legacy technology and kind of decision making structures that are harder to move quickly. When we looked at kind of all those factors, big TAM, being able to give access using modern data science, using exceptional digital customer experience, and then being able to move at pace, you kind of stack all those things up, and we just saw a huge opportunity. So I left my bank CEO job to become CEO of Mission Lane and help serve these customers.
That's a great story. But you also worked at Capital One, which right. had a lot of success serving people just under prime. What lessons did you learn there that you're applying to Mission Lane?
Yeah, so I took a lot away from my time at Capital One, a bunch of wonderful friendships and memories. One of the things that we worked really hard on was to have kind of very disciplined, rigorous underwriting and risk management, very data driven, and I think I took a lot away on that score. But the other thing I took away, Zach, is just how challenging it is to stay focused on serving this segment. The lure, the pull of moving up market and serving more affluent, higher spending, lower risk consumers is really strong for everybody. And so, we're trying to take some of those lessons, both on the kind of rigorous underwriting side, but also the, staying focused on trying to serve a consumer base that, again, like many forces are working against them. And so, for us to stay focused in serving these customers.
And Shane, so when you look around at mainstream financial institutions, what do you think they're missing when it comes to serving this population? Where was the opportunity for Mission Lane?
Yeah, I think there's on one hand, there's just giving someone a second chance, a third chance, or a fourth chance. Like, you're missing opportunities to pick up really good customer relationships. There's also a set of customers that aren't even getting a first chance. And so we think there's misses in the traditional financial institutions in both of those segments. But the other thing that I think a lot of people are missing is that, and we talk about a lot, but it's a much harder thing to do something about, which is that the dynamics of income and finances are changing, have been changing, and continue to change and evolve quite rapidly. We talk a lot about gig work, but I think it's even more than that. It's like income sources are very dynamic and fluid, and then you kind of orthogonal to that is family structures and how people kind of operate within their whatever they define as kind of their social circles and family circles is quite different. And pulling all that together into a financial picture that works for people, it can be challenging for a lot of folks. And again, a lot of things are changing very rapidly. So I think people are missing the opportunities that come through that. But I think we're also missing the just kind of acknowledging that these customers they're actually quite financially savvy. Like they understand, many of them understand their finances better than a lot of us because they are working really hard to make ends meet. And so they're kind of looking at things at a much more granular level than a lot of other folks. And I think that's an opportunity too, to help elevate them, given that they've got that motivation and knowledge.
So given that context, Shane, like what resources can empower this population to improve their financial lives?
We started Mission Lane kind of with the cornerstone thesis of giving access to credit in a way that would be, again, there's kind of a breadth of being able to open up credit access to more people, but to do it in a way that is kind of fair, clear, transparent, well priced, like all the things that we could do to make that a better experience for more customers. And I think that credit, for better or for worse, no judgment on anything in our society, but like that's a really important part of being in kind of the mainstream economy in our country. And so being able to help people get into mainstream credit and then build from there, we feel is a really important part of helping this population. But Zach, there's another concept that we think about a lot and work on at Mission Lane. We call it the positive wedge, but the concept is, how can we drive a positive wedge, help drive a positive wedge in household finances? And that involves not only driving down cost, but also increasing income. I think one of the things that I would like to see more of, all of us pulling together, is to create more solutions to help on the income side of household finances. And that could be in a lot of different angles: skills training, or better data to get you better jobs. And we have an app called Earn by Mission Lane that we're testing a bunch of ways to try to help on the income side, in addition to like financial literacy and budgeting tools and all these things that are important. But I'd love helping them start a small business. I'd love all of us to put a bunch more effort into lifting income, because that is the tide that raises all ships.
Understood. And one of the things we've heard, Shane, from a variety of different speakers over the past few days is the impact that the pandemic has had on their customers, whether it's small businesses or consumers. What are you seeing as the top personal finance issues among the population that you served during the pandemic?
Yeah, let's just acknowledge, Zach, the most obvious thing. Like, this was the weirdest recession, I think, in the history of recessions. Just the way it happened, of course, the almost instant, like 15% unemployment, closely followed by unprecedented, government support. It had, for me anyway, it has played out way differently than I expected when everything started to go down. We've gone from 15% unemployment, now we're sub 5. And
everybody's talking about how hard it is to hire people.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So what's interesting about that is the like a lot of things in life, there's going to be uneven impacts. Again, this is a pretty broad population we're talking about, and so there's going to be different things that individuals experience. When you look at the data, it indicates that at least if you look at checking account balance data, relative, pre-pandemic relative to now, and you cut it by income bands, people actually have more now, even however many months, 6 months past the last stimulus check, than they did pre-pandemic. But that's in a relative sense. In absolute sense, they're still operating on pretty thin cushion. And so I think the pandemic has taught us a lot about how to work differently and everything else. But we're at a situation now where we do have a crunch of workers. Like, we're all trying to hire like crazy, and it's very difficult to do so. You have, in some ways, kind of a weird way, like more employment opportunities, slightly more maybe in your checking account, but still, some of that is transient. So you're going to be facing the same problems you were facing pre-pandemic, and now you kind of have the specter of inflation as well. And so when we think about what the pandemic has meant, or what it means now for consumers that we're trying to serve, a lot of it is, our hope is that some of the macro pressures will actually increase wage growth. That, again, tide that lifts all boats. Like, we're hopeful that will be a good thing. And then kind of on the other side, we're worried that the inflation, food prices, gasoline prices, will disproportionately impact the customers we're trying to serve, and how those forces net is anyone's guess. But we think that in the end, the same challenges that you had pre-pandemic, eventually things normalize, and you're going to be facing those same challenges unless you can make some changes on the income side, or on your kind of access to good credit.
Got it. And how does Mission Lane use data to better serve your customers?
Yeah, data is that's our lifeblood. When we think about kind of data and the data stack and how we think about it, a lot of companies, well-intended, but often get too superficial with data. It's monitoring, it's reporting, it may be some kind of crude segmentation. So what we did is, when we started Mission Lane, we said, let's actually build a data stack ground up that's engineered to capture data really at a really granular, like pixel level data across every interaction that we can detect with prospects and customers, and stream it in real time. So part of it is like how you set up the data infrastructure. But there's another part of this, Zach, which is actually how you organize people to use the data. A lot of companies end up with data silos, and all of us have seen it, where the left hand doesn't know what the right hand knows, and it's hard, therefore, to serve a customer who actually just looks at you as kind of one entity. And so we've structured our teams such that they have access to the data and can do a much better job of connecting dots. And then on top of that, where we've applied our data capabilities, yes, in underwriting and credit risk management, that obviously is foundational. But the other place where it is incredibly powerful is in customer experience, and in being able to deliver on a superior experience using the power of real-time data to improve the experience. So across all those things, Zach, we are data junkies, and we're obsessing about it.
Data junkies. So given that approach to data, I'm curious, Shane, how you approach credit underwriting, and how that stacks up to, I guess, what traditional banks do.
Yeah. So we think about as we think about our underwriting stack in of itself, there's multiple layers to it. There's the data layer, there's the models themselves, there's the technology in which the models sit and where decisioning happens. There's the policies, the actual decisions that you say, given these model outputs, what are the decisions we're going to make? And then there's the customer interface. And one thing, like each of those layers, we can go through and say, here's what we're doing differently across each of the layers. But I think the more profound kind of founding insight for Mission Lane is actually how you integrate insights across those layers in a very kind of end-to-end seamless way for customers. So it's not disjointed, but we're taking it from the kind of proprietary data and external data right on through to the customer interface and everything in between, in order to differentiate kind of on top of everything else. And then if I drill down a couple areas, Zach, that might be of interest to the group, I think on the data side, we are all thirsty and hungry for new data sources. So we all test and ingest all the new data sources we can find. But I think the thing that a lot of people miss is the power of proprietary data that you generate through testing. Now, everyone will say, yeah, Shane, yeah, we know what testing is, but think about it in a much kind of more granular, more precise way about what are you building, not for the next decision, but even quarter over quarter over quarter, building layers and layers and layers of insight that you can then harvest for better customer experience and better decisions. So I think that testing obsession, I think, is important. The other thing is everyone's using machine learning. Like, I don't know anyone who's not using machine learning anymore. Any bank of any scale and every fintech is using machine learning, but and should be. Like, machine learning models will always be more creative and insightful than we humans can ever be. But it's creating explainable machine learning models, given what we kind of our obligations to customers and like being able to tell them like why a decision was made. I think the companies that are pushing not just the modeling techniques, but also the explainability are going to be ones that are going to do all right going forward.
Got that. And how does that approach different than what you've seen at some larger banks?
I think that the amount, if I go back to the data sources, the amount and rigor of testing, a lot of financial institutions will say, I'm going to take bureau data, and depending on what population you're serving, bureau data can be incredibly powerful. And I'm going to take that data, and I'm going to do some really kind of simple, maybe some simple A/B testing, and then I'm going to deploy that as my policies. And to be clear, that can work in certain populations. It can work okay. When you're trying to serve populations that are more credit challenged, you've just got to dig a lot deeper on the data side and on the modeling side. And so I think one differentiation is just the amount, like the total amount of testing, but also the way the testing is structured. The second difference is, I didn't talk about this earlier, Zach, but is actually the technology stack in which your modeling and decision infrastructure sits. Mm-hmm. One of the things I've really enjoyed about being a Mission Lane is we were able to start that, we had build that from scratch. Mm-hmm. And so our ability to deploy new insights into our models and therefore into the market, we can do that, in a matter of weeks. I remember one of our data scientists in kind of my first year apologizing to me that something was going to take 3 weeks to deploy. I'm like, oh my goodness, in my past institution, 3 weeks, we couldn't even make a decision in 3 weeks, let alone like deploy a new, kind of a new model infrastructure. So I think again, the technology and the ability to ingest stuff quickly, make it applicable to customers and deploy it quickly is revolutionary and really exciting.
Awesome. I have a product question about serving this population. So I know traditionally providing unsecured credit cards for low-income customers, it's been difficult to solve without moving into payday loan territory. How do you think about addressing this challenge and what it'll take for fintechs to really disrupt the payday lending industry?
Yeah, it's a great question, Zach. We our view is that you have to have, like, different products are engineered to serve different purposes or to solve different problems for customers. And an unsecured credit, whether it's a credit line or a credit card, does not serve every need that consumers have. We're really disciplined about drawing lines on pricing, on expected loss rates, and so forth. So we kind of put hard caps on that, so there's no drift that can happen. You hit a wall. But what that means is then we have to develop other products to serve customers that we can't serve with with an unsecured line of credit or credit card. And so I think that's the answer is we've got to get in with product structures that that meet the need, which is access to credit and credit building, but do it in a way that allows someone to progress. If you are a single product company trying to serve the segment that's using payday lending, you're going to get stuck in a bit of a cul-de-sac. And so you've got to think about it as what's the journey. And not everyone will succeed in that journey, but the ones who do, like, how can you lift them through back into mainstream credit? I think that's thinking longer term about customer relationships, Zach, and how they progress through your products is part of that answer.
Great. Shane, we have time we just have 1 minute left in our session. So I know we're coming to an end, but I want to look forward. What does 2022 have in store for Mission Lane?
Oh man, only a minute, huh? So we feel super blessed. We've had a lot of success serving customers with kind of credit offerings, and we obsessed about that, and that was our foundation. But as we look to the future, we want to continue to scale that, obviously, and serve more people with those products that we've refined. But we want to start adding more, and so across a range of different offerings, we have in test or in market, from everything from debit to more explicit credit builder offerings to, I mentioned, our Earn app that is trying to help people on the income side. What we're trying to build here, Zach, is kind of a personal financial operating system for credit challenged consumers that they can leverage, and each component you add actually makes it better for the consumer, that they can leverage to get to that, ultimately that destination of being able to kind of have more mainstream products and be able to, in positive ways, to be able to improve on both sides of your finances. So that's what we will be focused on in 2022.
Awesome. We had a last minute question come in. If you can address this quickly. Sure. Shramit asks, how is Underbanked different from deep subprime or credit invisibles?
Yeah, gosh.
It's just similar terminology?
Well, so it depends on who you ask. Like, everyone you talk to has slightly different definitions for these things. We use the term, we don't use the term underbanked because in some ways it's a misnomer. We start from because we start with a lending foundation, we start with the perspective of kind of credit. What products do they have access to? What kind of products they have access to? And what jobs are they trying to get done in their lives? So we view it through that lens. And that's why we often use the term credit challenged consumers. Some of them are actually quite well banked in terms of they have a mainstream checking account or something else, but it's more expensive. It doesn't serve their needs all that well. And so it's a little bit more, again, I guess the way we think of it is more of a customer needs driven definition to try to, because obviously we're trying to build products and solve the problems for those customers. So that's the way we view it. So hopefully that answer the question.
I think that does. Shane, always great to hear from you. Thanks for joining us at the Big Bank Theory Conference.
Good to see you again, Zach. Everyone, hope you have a great rest of the conference. We'll see you soon.